Our perspective is that investors need to be focused on the size and the magnitude of this shift that we're seeing. And our baseline forecasts, when we do our bottoms-up work, continue to point to acceleration in CapEx spending and it being durable for much longer. So we feel like investors need to have exposure to the companies that are directly benefiting from that. I don't think there's any question in anyone's mind right now as you're seeing these latest models come out about how impactful they're going to be, how much they're going to change, how much they're going to be able to do. And so while there's uncertainty about how, which sectors get impacted in which ways and how it all plays out, fundamentally, right now, we're in the start of what's going to be a multi-year CapEx build-out, and investors need exposure to that. And so our baseline is, you want to still be involved in the semiconductor names, the networking names, things like that are the direct beneficiaries of the spending. So.
Brooke, the corners of the technology market that are rallying the hardest in this moment are memory, logic, storage. I'm talking right now in response to the ceasefire. But that would indicate, if you look at some of the names that have returned to the prices they were at prior to the start of the war in Iran, that this conflict has done nothing to divert the trajectory that you believe capital expenditures were on when it comes to the AI build-out.
Yeah, and our fundamental belief is that there's been nothing that's changed in that backdrop. The plans and expectations that we had from these companies in terms of their levels of spending, where they were putting the capacity, how tight compute is right now, none of that has changed. And yes, the world is more uncertain today than it was 4 months ago, and risk premia have probably moved higher structurally because of that. It doesn't change the direction and the magnitude of what we're seeing. Remember that in this cycle, right now, compute and all the associated parts around compute are the most restricted and hardest to get thing in the marketplace. And if you want these models to perform better and to keep doing more and more, the key ingredient is compute and power and memory and all of the things that get pulled on by that. So, there's nothing that would change the outlook. We're very close to the big spenders around this area. So when you think of the Mag 7 companies, we spend a lot of time meeting with those management teams and understanding what their plans look like. None of them are wavering in their commitment and their belief in the opportunity in front of them behind.
Nvidia has down 26% from its 52-week high of 212,17 and 5.76% so far this year. The one-year return is still 59.59%, despite a 3.68% retreat over the last month and a further 1.64% fall during the last week. With revenue of $68.13 billion, up 73.2% year over year, and non-GAAP EPS of $1.62 compared to a $1.52 projection, a 6.58% beat. The fourth quarter results highlight the company's strength. Data center networking increased 263% to $10.98 billion, while data center revenue reached $62.31 billion, up 75% over the previous year. Revenue for the entire fiscal year 2026 was $215.94 billion, up 65.47%, with $96.58 billion in free cash flow. Bulls see a route to $272 and higher. The desire for agentic AI and the Blackwell architecture ramp are the foundation of the bull case. Revenue of roughly $78.0 billion is projected in Q1 FY 2027 forecast, not including any compute contribution from China data centers. Nvidia anticipates at least $1 trillion in orders for Blackwell and Vera Rubin through 2027, according to CEO Jensen Huang at GTC 2026. The 263% year-over-year growth in data center networking indicates full-stack platform stickiness, which increases the cost of customer switching. Strategic demand is tangible. OpenAI is constructing more than 10 gigawatts of Nvidia systems. CoreWeave is aiming for more than 5 gigawatts of AI factories by 2030, and Meta Platforms has committed to purchasing millions of Blackwell and Rubin GPUs. The non-GAAP gross margin increased to 75.2% in Q4 FY 2026 from 71.3% in Q1. Institutional conviction is reflected in the analyst average goal of 268.22, which is supported by 60 buy-rated analysts and just one sell. By April 2027, our bull case predicts $272.113. Geopolitical risk and concentration are at the heart of the bear case. The China data center compute contribution, which Huang anticipated to be worth about $50 billion, is 0 in the Q1 FY 2027 guidance. Nvidia lost an anticipated $8 billion in H20 orders in Q2 of FY 2026 after absorbing a $4.5 billion H20 penalty in Q1. With $95.2 billion in total supply-related obligations, there is execution risk in the event that demand declines. Large cloud providers account for about half of data center revenue, which makes up 91.5% of overall revenue. Nvidia would be disproportionately affected by any hyperscaler capex slowdown. The market's overall decline is amplified by a beta of 2.375. By April 2027, our bear case predicts $189.78. The $237.71 Wall Street price objective has a 90% confidence level. It is an odd setting to be trading 26% below the 52-week high while reporting rising revenue and growing profitability. Whether funding on AI infrastructure continues until 2026 is the crucial factor. Any retreat in cloud GPU purchase or any export restrictions would be cause for concern. Investors will be keeping a tight eye on 4 straight earnings beats and Q1 FY 2027 projection of $78.0 billion. Adoption of humanoid robotics and physical AI could have positive effects, while export limitations or a persistent slowdown in AI capital spending could have negative effects. In a recent interview, Doug Clinton, CEO of Intelligent Alpha, was asked a straightforward question. Which AI firms are now the safest options for investors in public markets? He responded, I believe it's probably Nvidia and Google in the public markets. The king is still Nvidia. Whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI, they fundamentally power all of these model makers' inference. For the past 3 years, I have been watching the AI infrastructure trade almost every quarter, and Clinton's formulation gets right to the core of why Nvidia is so difficult to gamble against. Nvidia hardware is used for inference by all of the main model makers, including OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and Meta. At the heart of the AI economy is a toll bridge. Clinton is supported by the numbers. Nvidia reported Q4 FY 2026 sales of $68.13 billion, up 73.2% YOY, with data center revenue of $62.31 billion, up 75% YOY. The connecting tissue of AI factories, networking revenue, increased 263% year over year to $10.98 billion. Nvidia's free cash flow for the entire fiscal year was $96.58 billion. With China data center computing excluded, CEO Jensen Huang's Q1 FY 2027 forecast calls for about $78 billion in sales. With 60 analyst buy ratings and an average price target of about $268, the stock is trading at a forward PE of 22x against that growth trajectory. There is presently a 63% chance that Nvidia will end 2026 as the largest corporation in the world by market capitalization, according to prediction markets on Polymarket. Join our investor community. Hit subscribe and like to get your daily Nvidia stock insights and tutorials delivered. For Nvidia, this year has been difficult thus far. The stock has been stagnating for almost 8 months, despite producing record-breaking performance and an amazing prognosis. A number of factors have kept the stock range-bound rather than a single factor impeding the chipmaker. Nvidia's stock has been negatively impacted by the geopolitical environment, ongoing inflation, and concerns about the future uptake of AI. Even some seasoned investors are starting to lose faith. According to data unearthed by Goldman Sachs, hedge funds are already beginning to participate in the action, selling stocks last month at the quickest rate in 13 years. The fire sale claimed the lives of some of the largest brands in technology, such as Nvidia. Shorting U.S. exchange-traded funds, a particularly pessimistic indicator that indicates they think stock prices would decline, was another way fund managers tried to strengthen their positions. Such actions have historically been detrimental to the market. Investors in Nvidia are left wondering what to do next. Now let's get started. Up until the end of 2025, Nvidia stock had an incredible 3-year run, with a price increase of over 1,180%. It makes sense that many Nvidia investors would want to take a step back and, in a sense, take stock after a run of that size, and there are many positive aspects. The chip maker continues to produce impressive results, which have further accelerated, despite fierce competition. Nvidia reported record sales of $68 billion for its fiscal 2026 fourth quarter, up 20% sequentially and 73% year-over-year. As a result, adjusted profits per share, EPS, increased by 82% to $1.60. Nvidia's remarkable gross margin of 71.1% drove the growing earnings. A few weeks later, Nvidia announced additional positive news during its yearly GPU Technology Conference, GTC. Executives disclosed late last year that the company had visibility into a backlog of over $500 billion for Vera Rubin and Blackwell AI chips through the end of 2026. According to CEO Jensen Huang's startling update, Nvidia will make at least $1 trillion from those AI-focused processors by 2027. Additionally, Nvidia keeps growing its empire by investing billions of dollars in businesses that give it a significant presence in the AI ecosystem. In addition to its $5 billion stake in Intel, the company currently owns $2 billion in neo-cloud providers CoreWeave and Nebius Group, optics technology firms Lumentum Holdings and Coherent, networking component provider Marvell Technology, and engineering solutions provider Synopsys. Nvidia has unprecedented control over the future course of AI thanks to these investments and the strategic alliances that accompany them. When considered separately, each of these advancements points to a promising future for Nvidia, but when combined, they depict a business at the forefront of its industry. What should investors in Nvidia do? In general, long-term investors and hedge funds play separate games. These funds' money managers use a range of extremely aggressive investment tactics, and many of them have very high portfolio turnover. Because of this, returns are erratic, and the majority of hedge fund managers are unable to outperform the market as determined by the S&P 500. However, long-term investors have an advantage over hedge funds. They are not attempting to manipulate their results in order to surpass arbitrary criteria, nor are they being evaluated based on their quarterly performance. Individual investors are released from the constraints of date-driven investing as a result. Instead of getting sucked into the momentum like lemmings racing toward an invisible precipice, investors should sit tight and weather the storm. Even if Nvidia's stock is struggling, the company is doing well both financially and operationally. Nvidia may seem pricey at 36 times earnings, but that is far less than its average multiple of 73 over the previous 3 years. The stock's attractive price is confirmed by further valuation criteria. Its price-earnings to growth, PG ratio, is 0.54, which is considered an inexpensive stock if it is less than 1. Furthermore, the stock is a deal at 21 times forward earnings. It's not always a good idea to sell Nvidia stock just because fund managers are doing so. Sitting tight is the wisest course of action for investors, as the company is doing just fine. The wisest course of action is usually to do nothing and ignore the day-to-day activities of the stock market. Since the stock price will eventually rise in tandem with the business and financial performance, I think Nvidia will eventually continue its upward trend. I'm not just giving lip service here. At 15% of my portfolio as of this video, Nvidia is my largest position, and I have no intention of selling a single share. Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input helps create a more knowledgeable community where we can all learn and grow together in the world of investing. Stay up to date with the latest market trends, insights, and key updates by subscribing to Investing Tutorial. We're here to help you make smarter investment decisions and stay ahead of the curve.
Some pretty volatile times that we're experiencing. What do you do in a period like this?
Yeah, they don't get more exciting than this. Well, look, you have to look through the noise. I mean, before last night, I wasn't sure exactly what we were going to talk about today, but I thought the right thing to actually discuss was to look through the geopolitical events, because at some point they will resolve themselves, and look at what the basic underlying economy is doing. And basically, it's pretty strong. Clearly, the increase in oil prices is going to have some demand destruction and inflation effect, but it's going to be somewhat short term.
Yeah, demand destruction at $93 is very different to the demand destruction you see at $117.
100%. So I think that we're going to go back to looking at a market being driven by AI investment up and down the supply chain, up and down the industrial complex all around the world. That continues to be a significant trend. I think that inflation probably needs 9 months to a year to sort of get back to where it was pre the war. I think that'll take some time. I think interest rates will probably moderate. You know, right before the war, the 5-year was around 3.7%. It got up to over 4. I think the 5-year will come back to 3.5 to 3.7. It'll stay in that range for, 3 to 4 months. If the war doesn't reignite, and if oil prices continue to come down, and if things happen the way we want them to, I think we'll get back to a pretty strong market.
That's a lot of ifs, but if we get back to where we were before the war broke out, there were already concerns in the market. There were questions about what was happening in private credit, whether that would bleed over or have an impact on the economy. There were questions about AI, whether all of that CapEx spending would actually lead to strong revenue and then earnings. So those were the concerns. But then you've got this underlying earnings picture, and we just closed out on the quarter. We're awaiting some of those quarterly reports. How do you add up all of that stuff when you take geopolitics out of the picture?
Well, two things are true. AI will continue to drive the economy, and there will be significant CapEx expense that will actually occur there. Many companies will benefit from that in terms of growth of revenues and growth in earnings and the speed at which they're going to grow. But it's also true that some of that CapEx expense is going to be a poor return on investment. And that will lead to some companies actually doing poorly, some companies potentially even going bankrupt. It does create more volatility. There's no doubt about that. Both things are going to happen. In private credit, two things are true. One is private credit is not going to fall apart. It's not going to go away. On the other hand, there is a liquidity crisis in private credit because, as we've seen many, many times before, this is not the first time this has happened. When you involve investors who expect to be able to get their cash back and they're invested in an asset that is not liquid, you have liquidity issues. And we are experiencing that liquidity concern.
The other issue, though, earnings, underlying earnings. Jack Cafferty was on earlier this morning, and he's looking for high teen growth in earnings. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, I think there is
from the S&P.
Yeah, there's a two-speed earnings also going on. Again, earnings driven by the sort of broad, I don't want to just call it AI, we'll call it power, data, AI-involved activities. Those revenues and earnings are growing faster. But the core economy is not going to grow that quickly. And, you shouldn't expect to see rates of growth in those earnings at the same level. On the other hand, that mixture creates a reasonably positive market. And the market is discounted by 10% or even more from its peak. And you're going to get that back. And it's going to continue. The market's going to continue to go up.